In unity, we talk about the Lord as the Lord of your being, the Lord in the traditional sense, but also the Lord of your being, and also the law. In unity, a translation of Lord can be law, spiritual law. So the law of your being. And in the words in the prayer of St. Francis, it says that we are here to be an instrument of peace, that if there's hatred, we're here to sow love. That whatever we see is lacking or missing, we're here to become it and to bring it. So if that is the law of being, if that is the law of the highest consciousness, if that is the law of the Lord of your being or your awakened self or the divine blueprint of all of humanity, and that is what we are here to bring, then anytime we are out of step with the law, we may feel off. If we are not in congruence, we may not feel harmony. We may not feel the presence of peace because we're here to be playing our part as God in action. Do you believe that? That we're here as representatives of God in action. That we are here, in fact, not even as representatives, but pure emanations. Raise your hand if you have or have had a pet. Raise your hand if you're one of those people that says they like pets more than people. And now shake the hand of the person next to you. Just kidding. I like my dog more than I like. No, just kidding. Our animals, our four-leggeds, are one of our clearest and easiest ways to see God in action, right? That unconditional love, that essence that, some people, and I was watching an Eckhart Tolle video just this week that a friend sent me on animals and when they make their transition. And he was saying that to some people, because someone was coming up and asking him this question and a whole audience of people, and there are people that had lost loved ones that were people rather than four-leggeds. And so he was sensitive to that, to knowing that for some people, hearing someone processing about a pet could be hard. But he said, if you haven't had one and had this spiritual connection with an animal, you might not understand it. You might not understand the grace and the life that happens when you wake up and you say their names, and every time you come home and you say their names, and you go to bed and you say their names, and they're an energy field, they're a consciousness. There's something beyond just a little body, aren't they? But if you haven't had that experience, you don't get it. But when we talk about the idea of being an instrument of peace, that's all of creation. That's all of life. That's us as people, as individuals. That's our four-legged creatures. That's coming up on Earth Day and the acknowledgement of the earth, right? For so many of us, that's being with a tree, that's staring at a mountain, that's wading in the water, that's swimming in a river, right? That's gazing into a forest. That is an instrument or an emanation or an expression of God, which is the grand overall design, which is love itself. Love in action. So we're here, aren't we, to demonstrate God in action, to truly demonstrate it. We're here to not only ideate, but to demonstrate this concept that we are instruments of peace, of love, of compassion. And it is ours to kind of sound that vibration, to do our part. If we operate together, doing our part, then together we're a symphony or a chorus or a band, pick your preference. But we're making music when we allow that to operate together. When we honor and respect nature and we see its ebbs and flows, we see its circuits, we see its demonstration, and we go to model that, same thing that when we go to model our own nature, our true nature, when we honor it, then we are a symphony. Then we create together. I had a great experience last week with our music team when we did one of my songs. If you're a musician or an artist, you may know what this feels like when you may have written something or done something, and when you perform it by yourself, it's one thing. But when you put it together with all the different parts and all the different skill sets and the hearts and the creativity and the power of those around you, it comes alive in a different way that it doesn't when it's just you. You know what I'm talking about? We all have our own experiences of that. For some, it might be playing sports. For some, it's creative and it's creating, whatever it is. But you know what it feels like when you're in sync with other people, when you're getting it, and it's all working together. And sometimes that's just a moment gazing out at nature, and you simply get it. You just look at it all, and you see how it all works together. You see how it's abundant and supportive. But it's easy to lose our way, isn't it? It's easy to feel like we're separate and to start operating like we're separate. It's easy to step apart in a way that makes us feel lack. It's easy to operate without all of our faculties. And when we do, we feel out of sync, or we feel like we're searching for something we don't have. We feel like there's not enough. Maybe it's too hard to navigate whatever is in front of us. And there's a lot to navigate today, isn't there? Just watching the news is a spiritual practice. Just managing one's own faculties, one's own creative faculties. And we know in Unity, watching our minds and being present to our minds is one of our greatest gifts that we can use in service for all of humanity. Because when a mind gets tormented and caught up in fears and what ifs, then it does not become very useful to the collective or even to the individual, right? But that's not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily easy. Sometimes I think, you have to have a PhD to do your taxes or navigate the healthcare system or even use your own phone. Right? It's like what I sometimes wonder, like, what happened with the Industrial Revolution? Like, it used to be that two people like in a household could provide for a whole household, but one of them worked. And then we made all these advancements, right? All these advancements. So everything got easier. Like, I'm not crushing wheat to make bread. I don't have to go to the chicken coop. It'd be cool, but to get eggs every morning and wash them, I don't have to wash my clothes by hand. I have a washing machine. I have an oven. I have all of these things. Yet we're in an interesting phase where we have not used as much of our divine intelligence. And doesn't it seem like we have less time sometimes? Even just from when I was a kid, I was like, everyone was kind of hanging out a lot. Like, where was the stress and what was going on with this and that and this and running to this and running to that? We create our reality. We use our divine intelligence to create whatever we want. And anytime we feel like we're in limbo or we feel like we're in a phase that is just a transition, it's ours to hold on to the vision. It's ours to actually step out of the river or put our feet down and ground them on a rock and start consciously creating our reality. But when we try to do that alone, we can have conflict. When we try to do that without our spiritual practices and without all of our divine faculties, we fall short. Because if we depend only on this mind or even only on this heart, we're depending on our culture, our education, our background, our skill sets, and our access. And if I just go from those places and I try to ideate my own life or affect the collective from that place, I can be very frustrated and fall short. But there is another way, isn't there? There's another path, and there's another power that sometimes we don't give enough attention and intention to. In fact, if we were to use all of our wisdom, I would say we would unplug from all of those parts of the self that is isolated or confined or limited. And we would begin operating only with a different mind. Charles Fillmore called it the superconscious mind. Some call it the Christ mind or the awakened self. But there is definitely another mind to operate in, is there not? And there are definitely more faculties to utilize. And there is definitely more intelligence than I could ever learn in a lifetime. Do you ever think about that when you read old books or you hear about what people knew back when? And do you ever think, I do, I feel bad for this a little bit, but I think we're so stupid today. Like, If a lot of things fell apart, like I couldn't figure it out, I couldn't rebuild that. And people a long time ago, like, man, they knew the building blocks, they knew the foundations of things, they knew so much. But there is a spiritual possibility, a spiritual teaching, and a spiritual option that leads us to the idea that these thoughts, these ideas, these divine inspirations are self-existent, that they're not tied to individuals, but in fact that they exist among us, that we can tap into them, we can pull from them, that they are readily accessible and available when we raise our consciousness to a level of access. That then we can move through a portal and we don't have to have the background to get it. We don't have to have the access or the power to get through. We don't have to have the education or XYZ. Put in your limitation. You don't have to have it. Let it go. Ignore it. In 1 Corinthians, this part of Scripture begins to talk about this field of consciousness. 1 Corinthians 12 says there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. And many of you have probably heard this before. I am inviting us to hear it on a new level today, to just hear through it. There are a variety of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of workings, but in all of them and in every one, it is the same God at work. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To each one, the manifestation of Spirit is given for the common good. The common good. To one, there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom. To another, a message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. And to another, the gift of healing by that one Spirit. To another, miraculous powers, and another prophecy, and another distinguishing between spirits, and to another, speaking in different kinds of tongues, and to still another, the interpretation of tongues. And all of these are the work of one and the same Spirit, and distributed to each one. Remember, distributed to each one for the common good. So there is something metaphysical in that practice, in that passage, in that word of life that shows us and tells us, though we are complete as individuals of self, there is something that is of a higher vibration when we are together. There is something in the collective that is greater because we have each been given an aspect of the one mind, of the one body, of the one intelligence, meant not for self, but for the common good. Meant for all. So if we're not then operating in that harmonizing vibrational field of all, if we're not leaning in and leaning on each other, if we're not recognizing that what is mine is not mine to hold as an individual, what is yours is not yours to hold as an individual, but in fact, you are holding what is mine and I am holding what is yours. And in the midst of that, we create for the common good. There it is, amen? So there is no such possibility that I could withhold from another and not withhold myself. There is no such possibility that I could attack another and not attack myself. And there's no such possibility that I could bless another and not bless myself, that I could share my gifts and not share with myself, that I could expand what I offer to another and not expand what I receive for myself. This is the practice of abundance. This is the practice of circulation. And this is the divine law. This is where we're harmonizing. So anytime something feels like it's out of sync, like there's discord, like there's not harmony, I simply dive in and go, where may I circulate? And where may I lean in and lean on? those parts of mind that are seemingly outside of me. The passage goes on to talk about unity and diversity in the body. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. And remember, Christ was not Jesus' last name. Christ was the identity that sacred scripture has pointed to for all of humanity before the physical birth of Christ even demonstrated. Christ is the anointed and awakened consciousness that has been known in tribal cultures, in native cultures, in all religions, and in no religion at all. Anyone that simply has a meditation and a spiritual practice and uses it to the highest of their ability will come to this truth, will come to this nature, will come to find that there is a living field of life available and accessible that is home beyond a home we have ever known on the physical realm. And that's the Christ. It's the superconscious mind. Charles Fillmore talked about it being the divine blueprint or infinite potential. Eckhart Tolle talks about it as being an awakened consciousness. It's taught about in Taoism, in Buddhism, in Hinduism. The passage goes on to say, "For we were all baptized by the one Spirit, so as to form one body." So we are all here to form one body. It goes on to say, "And we were given to the one Spirit this to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now, if the foot should say, 'Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body,' it would not, for that reason, stop being part of the body. And if the ear should say, 'Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body,' it would not, for that reason, stop being part of the body." You're getting this. So we cannot know, and it makes no difference. We can operate as if we're not, but it doesn't change the truth. I can act like someone is not mine, and that has no impact on whether they are fully me. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? If they were all one part, all the same part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye can't say to the hand, "I don't need you," and the head can't say to the feet, "I don't need you." On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. Can you feel that? Breathe into the message behind that. Breathe into that in your own life and globally, what's going on in our world today. For the earth, for others, for our brothers and sisters in Syria, our brothers and sisters in Russia, our brothers and sisters in Europe, our brothers and sisters here. Those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And the parts that we think are less honorable, we treat with special honor. The parts that seem to be less honorable, that we think are less honorable, we treat with special honor. And the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is part of it. And God has placed the church first of all apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing and helping, of guidance, of different kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all have the gifts of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? Now eagerly desire the greater gifts. It says love is indispensable. And yet I will show you the most excellent way. Can we feel that in our hearts, and does that ring true to be the truth? Not when we look at our own self-interest, but when we recognize life and really look through the veil at the microcosm and the macrocosm, at the little things and how everything really operates on a small level, and then knowing that that's how nature, that's how God expresses. The grand overall design, God expresses in patterns we can recognize, in patterns we can see. And sacred scripture is simply a key to our consciousness. It's a key for us to help unfold the truth so that we can help ourselves when we get caught in the loop of thinking we are separate. And when we cease to use the superconscious mind and we sit in lack or fear as if it's not there and not available to us. The superconscious mind is the aspect of consciousness which is unlimited, which is infinite. It encompasses higher levels of awareness. Our tendency is to operate as one hand, as a part. Our tendency is to operate as one instrument or one note without the symphony, with some of our faculties and some of our intelligence, but falling asleep to the truth of our being. I remember from my, it was either my GREs or my SATs, I remember the word cacophony. It's one of the only ones I remembered. It was not my strength. But cacophony, harsh sounds, dissonance, discord, like something that doesn't know how to play together. That can be our tendency. Our tendency can be to operate with what Charles Filmer called the carnal mind, or our own separate self-interest, or in a realm of duality, arguing with reality, arguing with what is, having attachments. We can operate in opposition to self and other. We can operate in isolation, and we can operate in competition. Has anyone seen some of the more recent articles on what we've always known as survival of the fittest? And they're starting to look at that more, right? And they're looking at the idea that maybe it wasn't survival of the fittest, maybe it was survival of the most cooperative. But it can be hard. It takes not just leaning on ourselves. It takes leaning in and leaning into each other. If we only lean on the mind that we think we have within our bodies, we will limit ourselves. If we only operate with the mind of our education, we will fall short. Even this right here, everyone right here in this room and online, this is one mind. This is the mind we get to lean on. Just imagine that for a second. I just earned every bit of education each one of you has ever gotten. I just got the wisdom from every life experience and every spiritual practice applied that anyone in this field has ever demonstrated or experienced. I just got the healing. I just got the prayer. I just got the love. I just got the intelligence. I just got the capacity for compassion when I lean into and lean on what is in front of me. When we use our infinite wisdom, the intelligence that is a level above what we feel like we can access, and the intelligence of the earth that is the groundedness beneath us, when I use that intelligence, I just gained. Even when we use our own body intelligence, we gain. Are we willing to stop separating ourselves? It takes vulnerability. It takes becoming bold and getting out of our comfort zone. It takes being strong and leaning in. And it takes sticking together, really leaning on each other. This week I had the experience of transition for one of my kitties, one of my beautiful kitties. And on Tuesday, it got to the point where I had to do that discernment process of whether or not I needed to take her in. And though I have prayed with so many people and supported so many people, I have not had to do that before. And it's one thing to stand with someone when your mind isn't in the midst of the clouds. And it's another thing to be in the midst of it and have to make that decision and go through what it feels like. And I couldn't do that alone. But it's not in my nature to call on people, which is ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. So I reached out to my friend Kelly, who works at a vet's office. I reached out to my friend Barbara from AG&T, who I know is a cat lover who has done it before. I reached out to my friends Alicia and Brian. I reached out to Ben and Sherry. And then I had to sit there and watch myself. I reached out to Julie, and then I stopped texting her for a week like I was dead or something. But I had to be with that part of myself that goes, no, I should just keep going. I just need to deal. And had to keep breathing moment by moment and going, no, I need to lead in. I need to say yes. But it's vulnerable to say yes, isn't it? It's vulnerable to say, I can't do this yet, and I might make mistakes, and I'm not ready, and I don't know. And, to sit there and go, well, what are you hearing? I have no idea what I'm hearing. All I want is the next 8 years that I thought I was going to have. Can we breathe into knowing that we are gentle, big hearts with big feelings, living on this planet together? And there are so many experiences that when we walk around day to day, we are walking by someone who just went through a divorce and is trying to figure out how to navigate life. We are walking with someone who's dealing with a health challenge that they don't know how or if they're going to get through. We're walking with someone sharing the same dirt that we walk with our feet on, with someone who doesn't know how to make it. There is an incredible sweetness when we begin to see how much we need each other and the incredible potential we have to give to each other and to lean on each other. Someone is walking through hospice care and what that looks like. Someone's walking through a mental health challenge and what that looks like. Someone's walking through healing from an operation, a physical healing, aging, navigating, being a parent in a way they didn't think they would, having someone come out with a gender identity that they're unfamiliar with, or some other life experience that it takes all of their understanding to integrate. Someone's lost a child, a partner, a job, a home. Someone retired and doesn't know how to navigate that. Someone's being deployed right now in the military. Someone's waking up with war at their door. Not the idea of it or the threat of it, but at their door. But you know what? We're not alone. And the beauty is, in all of those places, love is present. Love is present, and it's not just present a little bit. It is present in droves. It is present in biblical proportions. To such a degree that if we open the floodgates and we say yes, that all of the trauma will be something we walk through, but all of the love will be what we feel and what we remember. I said yes to Ben and Sherry, and Ben came over to dig the 3rd foot of the 3-foot little sanctuary. I'm going to have to find a way to bring this all back up before I send you guys off to lunch. It's so much love. And if there are tears, that's life and that's movement and that's beauty. That's our aliveness. Remember, with anything we go through, and when we walk this planet, there are people that have been there. Remember that our role is to demonstrate God in action, to be God in action. Teresa of Avila said, Christ has no body but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which she looks with compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks and works to do good. Yours are the hands in which she blesses all the world. Yours are the hands, yours are the feet, yours are the eyes, yours are the body. Christ has no body on earth but yours. Give someone the opportunity to demonstrate God in action. Don't isolate, don't hide, don't keep your mouth shut, don't act like someone is not you, don't act like another country is not you. Open your heart to the fullest of a full body spiritual experience, to what it all is, and let it all flow. Because what we are called to be is God in action. We are of the one mind. And ask yourself what you can give. Maybe it's simple. Maybe you can give this statement, I see you, I know you, I can help you, I can give to you. Maybe you see something that for you is easy to fix. Maybe you see something someone else can't afford, but you can. You could give to a friend, a family member, a spiritual community, the world, the collective. Maybe you can help someone navigate the system. Maybe you can help be an advocate. Maybe you can foster or mentor someone. Maybe you can research for someone. Maybe there's something you can explain. Maybe you can stand by someone or stand with them so they're not standing alone. Maybe you have the wisdom to know them better than they know themselves in a moment. What is yours to give? Because it's all of ours to remember that with anything and everything, to someone they've moved through this, to someone their skill set matches this, to someone their mind loves this, to someone their heart knows this or their heart has survived this, someone whose soul has navigated this, to someone else their body has healed this, to someone this is easy and it's a no-brainer. Something that may overwhelm or freeze you. maybe something that is someone else's delight to help you navigate. So let's be bold, let's be strong, let's be bad in a good way, and let's stick together. Namaste.